There's a man to see you. Says he knows you from years ago, talking about your brother, your mom.
Who are you?
You look just like your mother.
How do you know my mum? I've never seen you before in my life.
We really need to talk. I shouldn't have come back.
Regine is introduced as a quiet, fragile young woman who has spent most of her life running not from people, but from memories that refuse to loosen their grip. Her childhood was marked by fear, silence, and wounds that never fully healed, and adulthood has become an attempt to rewrite that story into something safer, something resembling peace. She has carefully constructed a new life away from the place where her pain began, believing distance alone might be enough to protect her. For a time, it almost works. Normal routines, familiar faces, and the illusion of control allow her to breathe again, but the trauma remains embedded deep within her, waiting for the slightest trigger to resurface. The sense of fragile stability shatters when news arrives that her grandmother has been brutally murdered. The loss is sudden, violent, and deeply unsettling, not only because of the brutality involved, but because it pulls Regine back toward the very place she swore never to return to. The village she left behind is not just a physical location, it is a psychological landscape shaped by fear, superstition, and unspoken horrors. Her grandmother's death acts as a summons, forcing Regine to confront unresolved pain and secrets buried beneath years of denial. Returning is not a choice born of courage, but of necessity, and every step closer feels like reopening wounds that never truly closed. As Regine arrives back in the village, the atmosphere immediately feels oppressive and wrong. The place seems frozen in time, heavy with silence and suspicion. The people are guarded, their expressions unreadable, as if they know something Regine does not, or perhaps something they are unwilling to say. Old houses creak with age, narrow paths feel claustrophobic, and the surrounding wilderness looms like a living entity watching from the shadows. The environment itself becomes a reminder that this is not a place of comfort or healing. It is a place where the past never stays buried and where fear has been passed down like an inheritance. Memories begin to resurface almost immediately. Fragments of Regine's childhood return in disturbing flashes, moments of dread, whispered warnings, and an ever-present sense that something monstrous lurked just beyond sight. These memories are not presented as clear answers, but as distorted impressions shaped by a child's fear. Regine struggles to separate what truly happened from what her traumatized mind may have imagined. This uncertainty becomes central to her experience, blurring the line between psychological torment and something far more sinister. The village feels hostile, not because of overt violence, but because of what remains unsaid, hidden beneath tradition and fear. As Regine investigates her grandmother's death, she begins to uncover unsettling details that suggest the murder was not a random act of violence. There are signs of ritualistic behavior, patterns that echo old stories she half remembers from her childhood. The elders speak carefully, choosing words that reveal little while hinting at ancient beliefs rooted deeply in the village's history. Legends of shape-shifting entities, curses, and inherited evil begin to surface, dismissed by some as superstition, but taken very seriously by others. Regine finds herself trapped between skepticism and terror, unsure whether these stories are metaphors for human cruelty or warnings of something far darker. The concept of the skinwalker slowly takes shape through hushed conversations and fearful glances. It is spoken of as a creature that can wear human faces, move unseen, and infiltrate families from within. The idea is horrifying, not only because of its supernatural implications, but because it mirrors Regine's own experience of trauma, how something can invade your life, wear familiarity as a disguise, and destroy you from the inside. Whether real or symbolic, The skinwalker represents a threat that cannot be easily identified or escaped. It feeds on fear, secrecy, and vulnerability, all of which define Regine's return to the village. As tension builds, Regine begins to question her own sanity. Strange occurrences surround her, unexplained noises in the night, figures glimpsed at the edge of her vision, and the overwhelming sensation of being watched. Sleep offers no escape, as nightmares blend seamlessly into waking life. Her trauma resurfaces with renewed intensity, making it difficult to trust her perceptions. The film deliberately keeps the audience in this space of uncertainty, forcing them to experience Regine's fear from within her fractured perspective. Every moment becomes a test of whether the true danger lies in the supernatural, the human psyche, or the toxic combination of both. Family dynamics further complicate Regine's struggle. Old wounds reopen as she reconnects with relatives who stayed behind, each carrying their own version of the past. There is resentment, guilt, and denial woven into every interaction. Some family members urge her to leave, suggesting that returning only invites disaster, while others believe she has a role to play in confronting whatever curse plagues the village. These conflicting expectations isolate Regine even further, making her feel both responsible and powerless. The sense that history is repeating itself becomes impossible to ignore. The investigation into her grandmother's life reveals that she may have been protecting the family from something all along. Subtle clues suggest she understood the darkness haunting the village better than anyone else, and may have paid the ultimate price for that knowledge. Regine begins to see her grandmother, not just as a victim, but as a guardian who carried an unbearable burden in silence. This realization adds emotional weight to the horror, transforming the story into one about inherited trauma and the cost of survival. The grandmother's death becomes symbolic of what happens when secrets are buried for too long. As Regine pieces together the truth, the boundaries between past and present collapse. Childhood fears are no longer distant memories. They are active threats influencing her every decision. The village's folklore intertwines with real acts of violence, suggesting that belief itself may be a weapon. Fear empowers the monster, whatever form it takes, and the villagers' unwillingness to confront the truth allows it to persist. Regine realizes that running away only gave the darkness time to grow stronger. Confrontation, no matter how terrifying, may be the only path forward. The film gradually shifts from mystery to psychological horror, emphasizing atmosphere over spectacle. There are no easy answers or clear villains, only a slow, suffocating sense of dread. The horror emerges not from sudden shocks, but from the constant pressure of unresolved trauma and collective silence. Regine's internal battle becomes just as important as the external threat, highlighting how fear can distort reality and trap individuals in cycles of pain. The village serves as a microcosm of this dynamic, where tradition and denial protect the monster more effectively than any physical barrier. In the final stretch, Regine is forced to face the truth head-on. Whether the skinwalker is a literal entity or a manifestation of generational trauma becomes less important than the damage it has caused. The confrontation is deeply personal, rooted in Regine's need to reclaim control over her own life. She must decide whether to continue living as a victim of the past or risk everything to break the cycle. The emotional weight of this choice is immense, reflecting the real-world struggle of confronting trauma rather than escaping it. The resolution leaves a lingering sense of unease rather than comfort. Victory, if it can be called that, comes at a cost, and healing is portrayed as an ongoing process rather than a definitive ending. The village may never fully recover, and neither may Regine, but there is a sense that acknowledging the darkness is the first step toward diminishing its power. The story refuses to offer simple closure. staying true to its themes of psychological complexity and inherited fear. Skinwalker ultimately presents horror as something deeply human, rooted in memory, belief, and silence. It uses the framework of a supernatural thriller to explore the lasting impact of childhood trauma and the dangers of unresolved history. Regine's journey is not about defeating a monster in the traditional sense, but about understanding how fear shapes identity and behavior. The film lingers in the mind because it suggests that the most terrifying monsters are often born from pain we refuse to confront, and that escaping them requires more than distance. It requires courage, truth, and the willingness to face what has been hidden for far too long.